Hey guys, TommyBoy601, and today we got a review of the all-new premium destroyer, The Sims. Of course, this was provided by Wargaming, so just want to go ahead and get that disclosure out of the way. It was provided as part of the community contributor program, just to let you guys know. Moving on to that, let's go ahead and talk about our comment of the day. Comment of the day goes out to someone who leaves a comment on one of our previous videos. Today's comment of the day goes out to Matthew Riley. He says, Prince Eugen or Atago, the battleships are a waste. He's commenting that on our Tirpitz video from yesterday because I bought the Tirpitz and I'm not too big of a fan. If I had to go back, or the next time I get 750, I think I'm definitely going to go Prince Eugen. I'll be honest. And then probably Atago. I just don't think I have enough tier 7 premium ships right now as far as cruisers go. I did just get the Siegfried back in my port, so I'm very excited to get her out and moving. But that being said, let's go ahead and talk about The Sims. Now, The Sims is a tier 6 destroyer from the Americans, and I don't know why she exists. I really don't. She just doesn't really do anything particularly well. So let's go ahead and talk the stats, and then we can talk about builds and all of that jazz. So first, let's go ahead and talk base stats. Sims, hit points, 13,800 hit points with an armor thickness between 1 and 20 millimeters. And I'm just going to go ahead and put up the armor view. I'm not going to talk through it like I usually do, just because it's a destroyer. There's no citadels. There's not really much armor analysis to be had. Interesting though, that 1 millimeter of armor, it's like they just added a 1 millimeter plate on top of all of the turrets. It's really weird. I don't understand why those are up there. Anyways, because of her minimal armor, she has no torpedo reduction. It's what you would expect out of pretty much every single destroyer. Moving on to the main battery, she's gonna have 4 one-barreled 127 millimeter guns with a firing range of 10.8 kilometers. Reload time, pretty much the fastest for any of the American ships, 3.3 seconds. This is her strength, if you will, is her reload time, but it really isn't much, giving her shells per minute of 72.7 shells per minute. 180 time on those guns, 5.3 seconds. When she's firing HE, it's going to be 1800 damage with a 5% chance of fire, meaning per salvo you're looking at about a 33% chance to set fire. If she's firing AP, she's going to be doing 2100 damage, and that means she's going to have a damage per minute of 152,000. This puts her worse off than both the Benson and the Kid, which really isn't a good thing to be kind of being that worse off over just the regular tech tree ships. Moving on, she doesn't have any secondaries, so we don't really need to cover those. Torpedoes, this is where she's supposed to have strengths. Her base torpedoes, she has 2 4-barreled launchers with a reload time of 87 seconds and a damage of 11,600. Defectability range is 1.3, and the torps have a max speed of 65 knots. The range being a very shortest for any of the American ships, 5.5 kilometers. Alternatively, she can equip different torpedoes, some Bliss Levitt Mark 7s, and this is going to give her completely different torpedo characteristics. The reload time on those is going to be 72 seconds. Damage is going to go down to only 8,500. Range is going to go up to 9.2 kilometers. Speed is going to drop down on those torps to 49 knots, and the detectability on those torpedoes down to only 1 kilometer. But overall, I'm going to tell you, I don't end up really recommending these torpedoes just because of how slow they end up being, and they kind of put you in a weird spot. We'll talk more about that later. Max speed of the Sims, 38.5 knots with a turning radius of 500 meters, which is the shortest for pretty much any of the tier 6 destroyers. So she does have a very tight turning radius. Rudder shift, 2.7 seconds. Detectability by sea, 6.8. Detectability by air, 3.6, and detectability in smoke, 2.6. And I know what you're saying, detectability by sea, 6.8, and the range on those torps is only 5.5. Yeah, you're looking at some suicide torps pretty much with this if you don't upgrade them. We'll talk about that more, but just keep that in mind that the default torps on this, while they do the same damage as the Benson, the tech tree ship, require you to be in suicide torp range. So there's a lot of shortcomings to be had with The Sims. Next, let's go ahead and talk about those mod slots and consumables. First off, in mod slot 1, you have the usual options. I went with aiming system mod 1. Second slot, I went with steering gears just to help out with that being able to turn quicker, get that sharper turning radius to proc quicker, just try to boost what she does have as a good stat. Next, I went ahead and picked the concealment mod just because I'm trying not to have suicide torps. That's kind of the goal with this ship, is try not to have suicide torps, so the default torps are the ones you go with. Finally, she does have a 4th mod slot, but that one is for the exchanging of the torpedoes, depending on which ones you want to go. Remember, when you do have these kind of bonus torpedo mod slots, you don't have to pay for the upgrade, so that's kind of a nice little bonus of not having to pay to upgrade to what turns out to be worse torpedoes. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about those consumables. She has the base damage control party, 5-second duration with a 40-second reload time. Then she has 2 charges of smoke, 27-second duration with a 121-second dispersion time. Reload on that is going to be 240 seconds, and she has 2 charges of them. And her last consumable is the engine boost. It boosts your max speed by 8%. Duration is 120 seconds with a reload time of 180 seconds. She also has 2 consumables of that. As for commanders, I'm going to go ahead and recommend Vincent Mordoff. I really like him just because of his base stat. If you don't have him, Halsey is kind of his alternative. It's the one that he is based off of, but his base trait of being able to boost the fire rate is really why I chose him, because compared to the tech tree and the regular kid, you are down 1 turret, so you want to try to make up for that DPM in any way that you can. So that's why I like going with Mordoff. His inspirations for me are going to be Bay and Luis Violette. I like Bay just to reduce that spotting distance. You could go for a double concealment build if you have Swirsky, but I like having Violette just because he makes it so that you get off of the radar after you stop firing a little bit quicker, and that can also end up saving your life a lot of times when you're in these American warships. As far as skills go, I have Observant Rage equipped that is going to reduce the main battery reload time of the destroyer and improve the torpedo detection at the cost of a slower rudder shift. Then I'm going to choose Look at Me Now. That's going to decrease sea detectability range. I'm going to choose Twist and Track just to get that closest ship indicator. And then I'm going to also pick Sheltered Arms. This decreases the chance of your ship's main gun and torpedo tubes being incapacitated. At maximum, your armaments cannot be incapacitated, but you can still be, they can still be destroyed. And then finally, as a legendary tier skill, I have Leviathan, which increases the maximum HP of your ship at the cost of a lower maximum speed. And that is who I have equipped for that. With all of that said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the key stats that we've gone ahead and modified now, things that are different from what we had and what changes in our build. So first off, reload time, we've reduced it all the way down to 2.9 seconds. Rudder shift, we've slightly reduced it to 2.4 seconds. And finally, the key stat is we have reduced the detectability on the ship all the way down to 5.6 kilometers, meaning we don't really have suicide torps anymore. They are at 5.5 on our range on the torps. So there's 0.1 kilometer where it's kind of suicide torp, but as long as the ship is coming towards you, it really works out where you have the time. Anyways, that's going to be the key stats that we have changed. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the history of the Sims. The USS Sims was the lead ship of her class of destroyers in the United States Navy during World War II. She was the first ship to be named for William Sims, an admiral who pushed to modernize the US Navy. The Sims was laid down on July 15th, 1937. After shakedown training, Sims joined the Atlantic Squadron at Norfolk, Virginia on August 2nd, 1940. The destroyer then operated in neutrality patrols in the Caribbean, South Atlantic, and North Atlantic waters. With the outbreak of war on December 7th, she became part of Task Force 17, formed around the aircraft carrier Yorktown. The task force sortied from Norfolk on December 16th, 1941, for San Diego, transferring her to the Pacific, where she would remain for the rest of the conflict. From there, she sailed as part of a convoy taking Marines to Samoa, arriving on January 23rd, 1942. At the time, it was believed that Japanese would attack Samoa to sever Allied communications with Australia, And to thwart such a move, a carrier raid was organized against Japanese bases in the Marshall Islands. The Yorktown task force was to strike the islands of Mealy, Jalut, and Macon, while another task force centered around the carrier Enterprise was to hit Quajan, Wachi, and Malape. Task Force 17 departed Samoa on the 25th of January with the Sims in the screen. At 11:05 on January 28th, she sighted an enemy bomber. At 11:14, a stick of 4 bombs fell approximately 1,500 yards astern of her, straddling the wake of the destroyer. The next day, the 2 carrier forces and bombardment group attacked, and they attacked those islands, and they withdrew. In late April 1942, a Japanese task force was assembled to begin operations in support of Japanese moves towards Australia. This constituted a covering group to protect the landing forces at Tulagi and a striking force to eliminate Allied shipping in the Coral Sea. Shoho was attached to the covering force, and Shohaku and Zukaku were the striking force under command of Admiral Takeo Takagi. The American ships were divided into task force centered on the Lexington and Yorktown. Sims was ordered to escort the USS Nisho. She was an oiler, basically a fuel ship. The task force refueled on the 5th and 6th of May and then detached Nisho and Sims to continue to the next fueling point. On the morning of May 7th, a search plane from the Japanese striking force sighted the oiler and destroyer and reported them to Takagi as a carrier and a cruiser. Takagi ordered an all-out attack at 9:30. 15 high-level bombers attacked the 2 ships but did no damage. Then at 10:38, 10 planes attacked the destroyer, but skillful maneuvering evaded the 9 bombs that were dropped. Finally, a third wave of 36 Val dive bombers attacked, and they basically delivered a devastating strike. Nisho was soon crippled and burning aft as a result of 7 direct hits and 1 plane that dived into her. Sims was attacked from all directions. The destroyer defended herself as best she could. 3 250-kilogram bombs hit the destroyer, 2 exploded in the engine room, and within minutes the ship buckled at midship and began to sink stern first. As Sims slid beneath the waves, there was a tremendous explosion that raised what was left of the ship almost 15 feet out of the water, and that was the end of this ship. She was sunk during the Battle of the Coral Sea. So yeah, that is the Sims, and let me tell you, her story gonna happen to you a lot. Sims, not exactly the most effective destroyer in the American arsenal that you have that you can play in this game. So let's go ahead and take a look at a somewhat successful game in The Sims, and we'll talk through her strengths, weaknesses, and all of that during that commentary. So let's dive into that. So here we are on Fault Line. We are spawning at the top of the map in the middle, which means we're going to go ahead and try to play middle. I think when I first spawned into this game, I thought I was bottom of the map, and I started playing it like I was at the bottom. But either way, here we are. We have the Sims. We've been located by someone else, most likely another destroyer, and we have most likely located them back. As far as build, we do have the shorter range torpedoes equipped, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about that now. I think the Sims struggles because she is a ship without a strength as far as a focus goes. I think you have the Kid, who's very much a gunboat. You have the Benham, who is very much a torpedo boat. And then you have the Benson, who is a slightly worse gunboat, but also has just as good torpedoes and is just a better all-rounder. And the Sims just fails to be that all-rounder. Anyways, we're in B. We're contested. There's another ship in the cap with us right now. And I think having... Kid pops up right there. So there we go. We have a pretty much a sister ship of ours. We have a ship that has 1 extra gun, and we are now going to show off why Mordoff is the key to being able to survive this. Because if we didn't have the very short reload time that we do... Now, The Sims does have a very fast reload time, but if our gunnery isn't on point, and if the Kid, as we can see, he's not hitting everything, we are definitely being more accurate, and we're getting a little bit more fire out. But if we weren't that accurate, we probably should have lost that little bout right there, if we're being honest. Anyway, Kid goes ahead and sits inside a smoke. Because we've positioned ourselves on the inside of this island, it means that no one is able to see us as we're fighting. the Sims was the only, or the kid was the only one that was spotting us, and because he's in smoke, no one else can spot us. And now we have another ship in the area. Of course, we do get Twist and Track to kind of show us where he is, and we know that it's in the capture point because we are now stuck at 36 seconds. We're going to go ahead and poke our nose around the corner and see who's just knocking. This is one of the strengths of the Sims, is she does have relatively quick torpedoes with a decently quick reload time. So New Mexico right there, he doesn't really know we're here, which is surprising. Once his secondary start firing at us, we're going to go ahead and pop smoke and hope that one of our teammates is spotting him. Luckily, it looks like our teammate is sort of, he's either popping in and out of spot or he's kind of spotting him through it. 2 torpedoes hit there. I'm like, sweet, we got two torpedo hits. That New Mexico has to be hurting. 3 torpedo hits and he's still not down, and that's the problem. Now, New Mexico does have really decent torpedo reduction, but there we just hit him with 5 torps and he still only has half of his health. So we're now just going to go ahead and whittle him down. Luckily, we only have 41 seconds left on the torpedo reload, so we're going to do what we can. Keep an eye on our smoke firing range, or smoke firing penalty, and just make sure that he stays without it. And we're just going to keep moving in this smoke and hoping that he doesn't blind fire us, because if he can land a full salvo on us, we are sunk. But we switch on over to AP because we can go ahead and harvest that superstructure for some decent damage. You can see we're doing decent numbers up in that superstructure. Sims, once again, it's a bare bones kind of American DD. If we looked at the history, it was built before the war. It's what we thought we would need in the coming wars, and she performs okay. It's just, I think the Sims performs the worst of any tier 6 destroyer. I think she's just kind of a weird ship that's lost without a cause, and you don't want to deal with her. Anyways, we go ahead and see that the targeting indicator on Twist and Track is not pointing to where that kid used to be hiding. So we have a feeling he's trying to come in for a torp run on us. We're going to poke our head out, and there he is, coming up real close. Now, the one benefit to these short-range torps is they are very much knife fighter torps. They are, widespread, cause confusion, see what we can do. As we can see, we let those torps go, and that kid stopped firing. He's now trying to line up his torps on us. He fires them way too late, and they are fairly easy for us to dodge. And that's why those torps are useful. They're knife fighter torps. They're the American boats to begin with are get into a capture point and secure that capture point, lock it down, and they have the guns and torps to do it. The problem I see with the other torps that are available on The Sims is the range makes you too confident and you end up burning the torps. The other torps are slower, but they have a decent range on them. But the problem with that is at tier 6, you're most likely going to have people that maneuver. They know not to sail in a straight line. So that max range really isn't helpful, especially when you have the really slow torps equipped. So what ends up happening is you try to stay at range with those torps, and you kind of plink them along, and they dodge them relatively easily. And then you can't use what is traditionally the strength of the American boats, which is their guns, because if you're at range, if you're at the 9 kilometers that those torps are effective at, that they have the max range at, guess what? Your guns, because of your arcs, aren't too effective at 9 kilometers. So you can get within 9 kilometers of them, but they are going to be just as easily able to kind of reverse out of your range. Your max range is only 10.8 kilometers. Like, there's only 1 kilometer they have to reverse. And then even if you smoked up, you've burnt the smoke, they've reversed out, you're kind of useless. Anyways, as far as games go, we have B and C. A has kind of been abandoned, and we're going to go ahead and play the objective. We've gotten 2 of the caps, and there's no other really fruitful targets for us. And it looks like there's 2 kind of ships over on the A flank. So we're going to go ahead and support this cruiser that is over at A, just because it sucks to be alone. So you can always use a friendly spotter / friendly destroyer. And that's what we're going to go ahead and be the assist for this cruiser, just so that he doesn't have to take on another cruiser and another battleship on his own. Budiani pops up. We're going to go ahead and fire our torps, just try to let him know, see if he keeps sailing straight, and if he does, we'll have that nasty surprise for him. We're also just going to kind of wait. We know we're going to be in range, and we can go ahead and kind of pull the aggro. We can go ahead, fire at him and just kind of wait for him to turn his turrets. And as we do, we slide behind this island. He's turned his turrets, and as our cruiser rounds the corner, we're definitely going to be able to support him. Of course, we are still spotted because there is this battleship. Luckily, it doesn't really hit us, but we're kind of spooked at this point. So out of desperation, we're going to go ahead and smoke up, see if Mutso ends up being spotted by any of our teammates. Spoiler alert, he isn't really, so this smoke kind of ends up getting wasted. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. He's at the range, he's at the far edges of our range. We're not going to be very effective at firing against him. So instead, we're going to go ahead and kind of leave him be. Take a hit right there. He blend fires into it and gets us down to 2,700 health. We're going to fire a couple more times because we know he's going to go behind this island, get the fire going, see what else damage he puts it out pretty much immediately. So we don't really get any damage over time. But we're going to go ahead, steal that A cap, or at least go ahead and get the extra XP from going into A and get close to our cruiser. Kind of say, hey, it's 3-on-3 now, and this is we're going to try to stick by you, see what we can do for the rest of this match. Anyway, back to the Sims, because I'll be clear, the rest of this match really isn't that exciting. Sims overall, the whole thing is, I don't think she has a right spot within the destroyer lineup. I think she's an inferior gunboat, she's an inferior torpedo boat. If you try to equip the non-standard torps, it puts you at weird ranges that you don't end up really excelling at. Like if you keep at those ranges, as we were talking about earlier, you're not going to excel at those ranges. You're just not. So the only really option is to be sort of this like close-up knife fighter. But when you do that, you kind of also want to have all 5 guns, and you just don't. So overall, Sims not a ship I would probably recommend unless you have a weird like personal attachment to it, unless like the Sims class is your favorite class of destroyer. If not, I think this is what you would consider a collector's boat. It is, you want every ship in the game, go ahead and buy the Sims. If not, I honestly don't feel like you are going to be missing out on anything. Mutso pops up here, and at this point we're not going to fire at him. He's far out of our range. But what we're able to do is spot for our teammate, let him do the damage that he can, and this is going to be our main role for the rest of this game. We don't really have the HP to pop up much anymore. We're going to end up popping up, but you know, we don't have the HP. We are a sort of a flag defense kind of thing, so is going to be our best bet. But unfortunately, we have burned both of our smokes. Our utility is pretty much burnt out. It would be nice if we still had our smokes and we could use the cruiser as a spotter while we go ahead and take out the 2 cruisers and battleship that remain. But sadly, that isn't going to be how this match ends up going. Sims, she just doesn't have the versatility. She doesn't have the right equipment to really be a star at tier 6. And the other big problem is the tier that she's in. I think I almost would say she should be tiered down to tier 5. I think at tier 6, making her go up against tier 7 ships is just mean. Like, it just isn't, it really isn't fair to her. She doesn't really have any characteristics that make her stand out, that put her in the tier 6 echelon of American destroyers. I think overall it might have been a better call for her to be tiered down to tier 5. We're going to go ahead, we pop up, and we are pretty much surrounded by these cruisers and the battleship, and we realize we've kind of overextended ourselves. We're going to pull out, hit that speed boost, and try to get out of here. We haven't fired our gun yet, so we're not going to be permanently spotted. Of course, we do have Viet. Just in case we do fire, we will end up being out a little bit less time. Mushin fires at us. Thankfully, he's go ahead and missing. Remember, he's both the ships, both the cruisers are still kind of high angle ships. They are both the HE spammer sort of ships. So being at range is going to be a large disadvantage for them. They don't really have flat firing arcs, which is why we kind of feel comfortable with going ahead and letting ourselves get spotted here, because we know that we can go ahead and dodge those. But then Mutso, with its very flat firing arcs, goes ahead, takes us out, reminds us why we're here. But we take out Muchin, and that's the end of the game. Guys, that's Sims. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Will you be buying The Sims? Personally, for me, I would save your money, wait for something else that strikes your fancy. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.